Hi there, hope you're having a pleasant day wherever you may be. Right now, I'm not in Goofy's house. I'm in Pluto's Cave near Mount Shasta, California. Pluto's Cave is located about 15 or so miles outside of the town of Weed, which is near Mount Shasta in Northern California. So what exactly is Pluto's Cave? Well, it is a lava tube that is not unlike the ones that we saw at nearby Lava Beds National Monument. If you'd like to check that video out, go right ahead, but what do you say we get back to this one? Lava tubes form when there's a flow of lava and the outer edge of it cools, hardens, and eventually sort of insulates the inner molten liquid that continues to flow till eventually the source stops flowing, the tube drains, and you're left with these long, hollow caverns and cavities. Now, this entire region of the Pacific Northwest, extending down into Northern California, is extremely volcanic. That explains why there's all these volcanoes in the area, including nearby Mount Shasta. So one would reasonably assume that the lava came from Mount Shasta. Well, not exactly. Apparently there was a vent about 8 or so miles from here that opened up about 190,000 years ago. And this ended up being sort of the main artery of the lava flowing into the Shasta Valley. Now, as the lava tubes form, they build layer upon layer on each other, ultimately kind of being like the skin of an onion. And this looks like a really good example of a really thick chunk of the layer. And on top of that, it looks like this chunk right here might have fallen off. So, really cool example of the wall kind of peeling off there. Pretty cool. Now, because of that layering, there is evidence that this has flowed many times over its existence, and that's why there's so many different layers deposited here of the lava. As you can see, this cave is pretty large. Like this particular one, this has got to be maybe about 50 feet or so in height, and then width, it's probably almost equal to it in width. It's pretty impressive how large these caves are capable of being. Now, this isn't the widest part of the cave, but there's a group that showed up, so I figured it was a great opportunity to give you some perspective of how large the cave is. Yeah, this is pretty expansive, and it gets bigger the further you go in. This was first discovered by non-indigenous people in the 1860s when a rancher was looking for some cattle and stumbled onto the cave here. He ended up naming it Pluto's Cave as after the god of the underworld. So as far as visiting here, it's pretty easy to get to. Like I said, it's about 15, 20 miles or so outside of the town of Weed, California, off of I-5. The roads are paved up until you get to the final turnoff, which is a forest road. Now, my car made it fine, it's two-wheel drive, but there were a couple patches that looked sandy. My car didn't react like it was sandy, but it looked sandy. Once you get to the parking area, then there's a trail that started off easy to find, and then after a point I kind of got lost and then stumbled onto it, and it kind of branches off into a lot of places, but it's kind of sandy, so just follow the footprints. I even had a little cell service so I could check Google Maps to make sure I was at least walking in the right direction, but eventually I got here and got to exploring. As I was walking from the parking lot, I just wasn't paying attention and almost twisted my ankle, which was actually a good thing because it reminded me to be very careful, which was something I needed to keep in mind as I was exploring the caves. So once you reach the entrance to the cave, it's very reminiscent of like the entrances to Lava Beds National Monument, except there's no infrastructure here. There's no steps leading you down. There's just kind of a really rough trail that gets you down and into the opening. If you're coming in from the parking area side, which looks like that's the only way, to the left is one short trail. To the right is the bulk of the cave. That's where all the action's at. So as you get to the mouth of the cave here, you're confronted with a kind of a rock scramble, and you have to really be careful with your footing. And even though you're near the mouth of the cave and there's a lot of light, use your flashlight because the footing is tricky. The rocks are dark. It's really hard to see where you're going to step, and then just be careful. Make sure the rock you're stepping on is sturdy. They tend to balance precariously on things, and volcanic rocks are lighter than you think. They'll move. So just be very careful, be very mindful of your steps. So after that initial sort of rock scramble that you hit at the very beginning of the cave, it's a lot easier to walk after that. It becomes sandy in wide enough spots to at least become a trail, if not big areas like this. So you still have to be careful because there's still rocks in the sand. You can still twist an ankle, you can still trip, but at least you don't have to watch every single movement you make, making sure that it's stable and that you're not going to lose your balance. So it's a lot easier. Now, as you're walking along, there are a couple of significant skylights, is what they call them, but who are we kidding? They're cave-ins. Um, the light provides enough to, you still need a flashlight, but it definitely makes it easier, definitely gives you peace of mind than when you're walking in the pitch black. So as you pass the second skylight, you have to kind of scramble over some rocks again, and it opens up to this really big room here. And then there's another little scramble to continue going further. It kind of goes around a corner, and that's where you definitely lose the light that you get from the skylight. Now, that was a little further than I was comfortable going, especially since I'm here by myself. So I stopped. I could kind of see it with my flashlight. It's hard to capture the size with the pinpoint of the light, so I tried my best. But yeah, I'm turning around here because I feel like I saw, a good chunk of this. Now, in sort of a quick summation of how much I explored the cave, I went based off of the map. So if the map is to scale, I probably went maybe 2/3 or 3/4 of the way. I was a little further than I was comfortable going by myself because, like everything spelunking related, they say not to do it alone. So what do you think I did? I went alone. So I basically went to the edge of where the light was okay. Um, but I feel like I got my money's worth. I feel like I explored a lot, and I feel like I got a real sense of what Pluto's Cave is all about. Unfortunately, this looks like a pretty well-traveled place to visit, and as a result, there's a lot of graffiti on the walls. It's just they're all over the place. It's unsightly. If you do visit, don't be part of the problem. Don't add to it. And that sort of speaks to a greater issue at hand, which this is a very fragile environment, very fragile ecosystem for a lot of plants and animals that live here. So as you're exploring, just be very mindful. They also mention white nose syndrome for the bats, just like over at lava beds. So yeah, just be very mindful of what you touch and what you interact with. So overall, I just have to say it's a pretty cool experience to come visit here. Like I said, it's very much akin to lava beds. I know I keep referring to that, but that's because I just did that one yesterday, even though this video is going to be spaced out by several weeks. But yeah, a lot of this is very similar. There's a lot of parallels. Lava beds as a national park felt very rugged in many aspects in terms of where you're walking and things like that in those caves. This is just a notch above it because this is truly wild. This one, it's all just kind of there, and you're just kind of climbing over rocks and things like that. And so with that said, just be careful when you visit here. It is very rugged. It is very wild. So don't hurt yourself. Well, that does it for this one. Thanks for joining me on this trip to Pluto's Cave near Mt Shasta in Northern California. Hope you found it interesting. Hope you found it entertaining, and maybe it'll encourage you to come check it out yourself. With that said, I guess I'll see you on the next one.